Back on TYT Sports, you know Sal already. He's been here for 2 clips as is that are already up. But we got to make sure to check out Sal on Vice World of Sports, which is on VICELAND Wednesdays
at 11 p.m.
11 p.m.
Yeah.
Right? Now, first of all, I've been a fan of Vice ever since Vice has come out. That's something I check Vice Sports on a regular basis. I watch Fightland. I think the content has always been a unique perspective on the news, and that's important considering, given the Young Turks and what we try to do here from a news desk situation, is give a different perspective.
That's saying a lot coming from you guys.
All right, thank you.
So thank you.
Oh, thank you, because when we look at the news and the mainstream and how it works, we do, and we've always felt, at least on this platform, that there's a certain degree of acting to it. We don't use teleprompters. I think you guys know that at this point. We don't like teleprompters for the reason that we want to have a conversation. That's why we have guys like Sal Masakela on, because he's a conversationalist.
I am.
Well-versed, well-traveled.
Thank you very much. For me, I think it's about I've always said interviews should be conversations.
Yes.
And if you come into it with a set of questions, expecting the answers that you want, then you're not trying to have a conversation. You're not trying to get anything out of it other than what you want. And it's the same thing for the way that we try to tell these stories on Vice World of Sports. We get an idea of what the story might be in this place or about these characters that people have never heard of, but there's something super rich there that if people were able to get in and see, they can get excited about, they can find things to identify with, and they can be moved. So we try to we kind of think of the show as a culture show that uses sports as a through line. And it's been incredible, man. It's been incredible to be able to go to places like, Ghana, Bukom, to tell a boxing story in a little small fishing village that's 50,000 people strong, but has more world champions the past 6 decades per capita than any other place in the world.
So what I find fascinating about Vice World of Sports is that it's not so much your angle on it, and this is something that you've created. This is a lot has to do, which I found very interesting as well, and the freedom to go out and cover these types of stories. So if you check out the website and you go over there, you'll see a lot of interesting takes. For example, there's the World Football Prison Soccer, I should call it the Prison World Football League.
Yeah, in Uganda.
The most dangerous soccer league in the world. They call it soccer football if we're in the United States, so leave me alone. But you go into it, and it's got the theme of sports.
Right.
But it's not about that, because it seems like it's a lot about culture. As you mentioned, the boxing stories in the village of 50,000 strong people, but they're producing these champions, a lot because they're fighting for their life.
Right.
That is the fight game.
Right.
That's what it's always been. I mean, back into the days of even Julio Cesar Chavez of Mexico. For that, it's just the way to which these stories are being told. So I wanted to ask you specifically, out of all the places you've been, and by the way, Sal, like I mentioned in a few of the clips, he's covered the World Cup, Olympics, X Games for many years. Out of all of that, when it comes to Vice World of Sports, which 1 or 2 places have you been that struck home the most, I should ask?
Kenya.
Okay.
We went to Eton to see sort of do a story on the Kingali people and why they're the greatest runners in the world. And we ended up doing it through the lens of 2 twin brothers from New Zealand who moved to this remote village in Eton in Kenya when they were 17 years old to see if they could run amongst the best. Wow. Because people always want to say, oh, the Kenyans, they're so good because they've got a DNA thing and they've got these skinny long calves. And I've always felt like, unfortunately, societally, when black people are really good at stuff, there's this instant sort of rush to try and figure out what's the science. Because it can't be just from hard work and struggle.
And work ethic.
And work ethic and a collective idea as a people or a culture that this is what we want to do.
Right.
So let's see if we can find some science to see why they run so fast or jump so high. And that sort of takes out the idea that they're doing something better.
Right.
And going and doing this story in Kenya, we found that out, through the eyes of these 2 kids who, when they first went there for 5 years, they couldn't hang with the Kenyans at all. But they lived in mud huts, and they lived amongst them, and they lived the struggle and had to train in the same circumstances as they did. And over time, they started to adapt. And now these kids run with and compete as Kenyans after 9 years of being there. And the Kenyans respect them and accept them as sort of honorary Kenyans. I call them white lions. But it's an interesting story, and for me, it was cool to get a little bit more into the essence of the work and the struggle.
Right.
Yeah, they run at 8,000 feet, and they're long and they're lean, but they're running for their lives.
So one of the biggest things I actually knew about this was I don't think it was the science of longer calves, all this. And there's a great book actually called The Sport Gene,
Right.
Which goes into a lot. Is LeBron James genetically engineered to be better than everybody else?
Right.
Was Michael Phelps born to be the best swimmer of all time? All these things. But in Kenya, a lot of it does, from what I've read, is the 8,000 feet, which has nothing to do with the color of your skin.
Right. 8,000 feet, a super temperate climate, but you also they're running in like roads with rocks.
So it's harder on that. That makes sense too. So they go, when they do like a marathon,
So
at least in
you
the United
imagine
States,
you show up
you're
to
like,
London, you're like,
they're doing it barefoot.
this shit is paved at sea level? Oh, we're about to go ham.
They're taking off their shoes. They're like, look
Yeah,
at this barefoot.
this is amazing. But yeah, you see the conditions in which they run in training runs. They're running on like dirt farm roads with like big rocks in them
Yeah.
that they're navigating, that you wouldn't consider like a world-class venue for training. So I think there's all these different elements that in this story you see, and you get a more of a sense of who they are,
Right.
who these people are, what drives them, as opposed to like what their physical gifts might be.
Right.
Because you can go around the world with that, but you can't necessarily identify with it, and you get to get a human essence. That was my second favorite. My favorite is our show that airs as our season finale.
Right.
We went to Pine Ridge, to the Pine Ridge Lakota Sioux Reservation, Indian Reservation in South Dakota, to do a story about high school basketball. The episode's called rezball, and that, to this day, is the best story I've ever been a part of being able to tell.
Before you get into that, take a look at the trailer here for that. It's going to be on Sunday, correct?
Wednesday.
Sorry.
Wednesday.
Wednesday, you can see it at 11 p.m. Take a look at the trailer here.
If I made it far in basketball, I don't think I wouldn't come back. It's hard living here.
We're on Pine Ridge Indian Reservation in South Dakota. It is a community that is primarily made up of the Lakota Sioux people.
We're strong enough to understand freedom and justice for all really didn't happen for our people.
What would you say basketball means to a kid growing up here?
It's like hope.
Why?
Let's go! Out of these guys here, 3 kids out of 15 have 2 parents at home.
What is it about the Lakota Sioux people that still gives that fire to say, we're not gonna be broken? I don't know.
No matter what community you are in the United States, if you have a good team, then you have a good town.
Timing is everything, right? NBA Game 7 is Sunday night, a controversial final. Everyone's going to be talking about basketball, and you planned for the Game 7. You talked to the officials.
Yeah. So listen, can you stretch this out a bit? Because
Just
we're
like-
sitting on this basketball
Can we
story.
get Game 8 on Tuesday,
Yeah.
maybe Wednesday morning?
Or maybe just make it a best of 9. And no, we're so lucky. I mean, we picked this story to be last because it was the best and the strongest story, and it just so happened that things shook out where basketball's still going to be on the minds of people. My favorite part about this story is that you find yourself in America in a way that you're not used to seeing America. Myself being there on the reservation for 10 days, there are moments where you see some of the things that the community is struggling with from an infrastructure standpoint, and just things that you take for granted, that you're like, wow, I'm in America right now? Not to mention some of the other things that the kids have to deal with single-parent homes, and I mean, 12 kids in a town of 5,000 committing suicide in the span of a week and a half last year, and their basketball is something that gives them a strength and a self-identity, and that the town identifies with, so that you have this high school, this rivalry that is celebrated in this place. When you'll meet the kids, you see what they're dealing with, and it makes you really think about the history of our country in ways that maybe you normally wouldn't with basketball.
It brings it right back in a perfect way to wrap it up. It challenges your perspective. makes
Yes.
you see things from a different angle, and that seems to be one of the major themes of Vice World of Sports. So make sure to check it out. Once again, Wednesdays at 11 p.m. We'll leave the link to the trailer in the description box below, as you can find Sal too. You can find him on Twitter. You can find him on Instagram at Sal Masakela. Obviously, you can.
I'm
see
even
him.
on the Snapchat.
Oh, is it the same?
Salakazam.
Oh, that's a decent.
Salakazam. See, my last name is Masakela. Backwards, it's Salakazam. And then you throw an S in front of it, which is from the Sal, and it's Salakazam.
We're challenging the Snapchat perspective also. At TYT Sports on Twitter, if you'd like to follow me.
Be kind in those comments.
Oh, man, have you seen a comment section?
It's,
I'm just kidding.
It's vitriolic at times.
We have great fans. We do. We have great fans and great viewers. So we'll hash it out into the comment section below. Everything, like I said, in the description box below. Follow the links. We'll see you over there.